Shabbat Shalom. We're reading passages from Avodat Hashem, Inner Work, Teachings of Rav Ashlag. We're on page 83. When we overcome our desire to receive, we are shown a greater pleasure and given a greater desire to receive. This is so that we will continue to have spiritual work and be in need of God to shine the light of Torah. So when we overcome our desire to receive, which means we let go of separate self-consciousness and start to open to unity consciousness, we're shown a greater pleasure, which is the unity consciousness, recognizing the divinity and the sacred within all things, recognizing our purpose and the possibility of actualizing our purpose, which is this greater pleasure. And thus we are given a greater desire to receive. Our desire to receive enlarges. Instead of wanting ice cream and physical pleasure, sensual pleasure, we want God, more God. We want more purpose. We want to serve more. So our desire to receive increases. It becomes larger. This is so that we will continue to have spiritual work and be in need of God to shine the light of Torah. We'll have more spiritual work to gain higher levels of connection to fulfill the greater increased desire to receive. And we will be in need of God to shine the light of Torah in order for us to manifest that deeper connection and that greater sense of purpose and more capacity to serve God. The hiddenness will not go away until we realize that the most valuable things in life are believing rather than knowing and giving rather than receiving. So the hiddenness, meaning the galut, the exile paradigm, and the hiddenness of God's presence and the sacredness of all life, the unity that runs through all of existence, it will not go away until we realize the most valuable things in life are emunah, our embodied faith, believing that God is here, believing in God's purpose and God's guidance, rather than knowing, meaning rather than direct experience of such things, and giving rather than receiving, that the most valuable things in life are giving rather than receiving. Until then, the hiddenness of God's presence and the purpose and the plan for humanity will continue to be hidden. A child is someone who thinks it's worthwhile to base one's life on self-gratification. This can be someone 70 years old. A grown-up is someone who understands the need to base one's life on connection with God. This can be someone young. Right? So if you've ever wondered what makes an adult, what makes a child, right? What does it mean to grow up? The Rav is saying that a child consciousness is someone who thinks it's worthwhile to base one's life on self-gratification. And this can be someone 70 years old. It doesn't matter how old a person is. They can still be a child. And a grown-up is someone who understands the need to base one's life on connection with God, that God and union with God, the divine, and service of the divine is what one should base one's life on, is the most important, essential thing in this life. And you can be any age. You can be very young when you get this and you are mature and you've matured in that way. So someone very young can actually be an adult can be mature, and someone very old can still be a child, as I'm sure many people have experience with. What do we need to do to develop spiritually? Choose a good spiritual community, right? So there's a question, what do we need to do to develop spiritually? And the answer is choose a good spiritual community. This is saying, the Rav is saying that it's very, very hard to do the work alone. It's very, very challenging, and that we really need to be in spiritual community to do this work, to progress and be successful at doing this work. Doing it alone is very, very, very difficult, and some might say even impossible. Our spiritual development is determined by who we are friends with. So continuing on the previous theme, our spiritual development, our progress, our transformation is determined by who we are friends with, who we keep social connections with, who we're intimate with, the relationships that we have. If we're with people who are dedicated to the path, then our spiritual development will become quickened. If we are surrounded by relationships with people who are not on the path, who are consumed with self-serving, then our spiritual development will be stunted and halted. The Ari HaKadosh says that the Sitra Achra, the desire to receive, is connected particularly to tzaddikim, spiritual levels and divine lights that contain enormous pleasure are revealed to these righteous people who yearn to be pleasing God. The desire to receive wants this pleasure, right? So the Ari HaKadosh, Rabbi Isaac Luria, the father of Kabbalah, says that the Sitra Achra, which means the other side, quote unquote, the other side, means the forces of evil, essentially. And he's saying that it's a synonym with the desire to receive. So the Sitra Achra / the desire to receive is connected particularly to tzaddikim, to the righteous, to those spiritually elevated. Why? Because spiritual levels and divine lights that contain enormous amounts of pleasure, the pleasure of union with the divine and the pleasure of the revelation of one's sacred purpose and one's mission in this world and reason for being here, pure clarity, all these light and enormous pleasure are revealed to these righteous people who are yearning to be with God, who are yearning to please God, yearning to be pleasing God. And thus, the Sitra Achra, the desire to receive, wants this pleasure, right? So these forces are attaching themselves to the righteous because the righteous have access to such enormous amounts of pleasure and divine light. Right, because that's it. Because they have access to this enormous pleasure and divine light, and so those forces are attaching themselves, trying to get to that enormous amount of pleasure. Okay, have a wonderful night. We'll hopefully see you tomorrow.